Good evening, everybody. Today is Wednesday, January 21st, 2026. We're in the Eldon F. Marrero Board of Selectmen meeting room. The time is 6:30 p.m. Before I stand for the pledge and ask everybody to join me, please be aware this meeting is being recorded for use on the internet and our local cable station. Again, if you can stand, please join me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item on the agenda is an update about 6 Crescent Street.
Yep, so if the board will recall, on December 17th, the board met with Mr. Centrella, who was present in the room. We know that there has been an ongoing issue with the Conservation Commission in reference to water potentially getting onto his property. Conservation mandated through their permitting process that a swale or a berm or something be installed in order to be able to mitigate the water. There was concerns at that time raised by Mr. Centrella about a board that was there saying that it would rot out in a number of years, and also whether it was a swale or whether it was a berm, and what would be the long-term effectiveness of it. The board asked at this meeting that I provide you whatever update that I could. In that meantime, I visited the site. We've not had a lot of rain, but there was one day, it was on a Friday. I met after hours with the conservation agent, Tim Hay. We went out. We got a decent amount of rain. The trench was working effectively where it was catching water, and it pushes water to the back of his property. Since then, we haven't had a lot of rain. However, we also know that the permit is not scheduled to be closed out till at least the spring, because conservation itself has made it very clear that they want to be able to re-inspect and see as to whether or not it's working as designed. The board that was also raised, I watched the conservation meeting of December 2nd. Conservation made it clear that that border is temporary in nature and is only there so that way it can help stabilize the ground that has been created up along the fence, and that once that ground is reseeded in the spring and it is stabilized, that board will come out, because there's no doubt it would rot over time. The point is to try to keep that mound there, because if there is no board while the ground stabilizes itself, then water will obviously wash away that topsoil. So at this point, there's not a lot of an update except to say that it will be monitored in the spring. And from what we saw, at least the one day that it did rain pretty good, is that it was effective in its nature. And I know Mr. Centrella is here.
Howdy, folks. My name is Adrian Lassand. I am an attorney who's been working with Mr. Centrella for a few months now. I had come to the meeting on October 17th with the Conservation Commission and raised some points asking them to take certain actions relating to the permit, and haven't really heard much back from them since then. I wanted to start off with correcting something that appeared. Well, first off, we had a letter that we sent on 12/17 to the Conservation Commission. I didn't know if you all had the opportunity to see it. That just present a copy to the board in which they had it. And that was asking, so I guess around the 17th of July, there had been an enforcement order relating to the property that said they had to construct something that complied with a general stormwater permit. They were instead issued an administrative permit by Mr. Hay, and then the next month went with a plan that had a 1-to-3 ratio. The swale was 12 inches deep and 2 feet wide. And they said, at the October meeting, they were going to build such a swale. But the swale that was constructed was not 12 inches deep along its entire duration, and in many places was only about a foot, sometimes 7 inches wide. So it didn't comply structurally because of how close it was to a garage that was nearby. And we'd asked that the Conservation Commission caused the applicant to build something that complied with the plans. They had submitted plans previously. I also have copies of those, and I've highlighted here the structure and nature of the swale, which is supposed to be 12 inches deep as measured from the natural ground. Now, the construction of a berm is not anywhere in the proposal that was subject to administrative approval, and there was an ongoing enforcement order from previously, the 717 enforcement order. So what we're concerned with is that the construction of a berm is very different than a swale. Berms are elevated and they may direct water to the sides. They're subject to failure. This temporary berm, as you just mentioned, is supposed to grow in with grass and become a permanent fixture. That hasn't been approved by any engineer. There were other problems that we brought up, and the, I guess, permit that they had applied for and discussed, as described here, is above the size limit where they can just get by with an administrative permit. It has to be a general stormwater permit. And the one that I think was approved in late October was based at least off this site plan dated, what is this, June 4th. So it has something that's been approved and stamped by an engineer with a swale that was designed to be compliant, a foot deep, 2 feet wide at a 1-to-3 ratio. Whatever exists in the site right now doesn't exist in that ratio. And we're concerned that in the spring, if Mr. Hay goes out and says, okay, well, there's something here, I'm going to wash my hands of this, that there will still be a continuing trespass of water, but it will now be subject to an approved certificate from the conservation agent on something that violates the permit and was subject to an enforcement order and was never brought into compliance with the existing enforcement order. If the town can't come to some action to cause it to be brought into compliance with the permit, our remedy would have to be an action certiorari, where you say, if an entity doesn't enforce, it becomes an abuse of discretion question. And Mr. Centrella is of limited financial means. It's really something he doesn't want to do. It's something that I was hoping not to have to do for him, because that often means that you don't get paid for a while on it, and you end up spending a lot of time on an action. But if no further action is taken, I don't know what else we can do to cause it to be brought into compliance. Now, right now, what's proposed, a wooden board that'll come out, a berm of dirt that has not been approved of by any engineer. We're not confident that that won't, for example, topple when it rains, or that water won't wash around it. If they're saying that that's a temporary measure, then, as we asked for in October to the commission, we would like a third-party engineer to come in and inspect and give some standard or some determination on whether that would be sufficiently protective of the neighboring yard, because we have continuing trespass of water. Back before things began icing up, we did have ongoing events of flooding. Trees been taken out, bushes have been taken out, and that would separately be a civil issue. But what we're concerned with is that if it, as currently built, is approved of, it deviates from the permit, and that would complicate my client's position, because now he's not just saying, well, Mr. Varasso and Anchor have ignored 3 enforcement orders, but he'll have a defense of saying, well, I was approved of by the conservation commissioner, so I don't have to do anything about this. So it almost forces my hand to prevent the approval of something which would be a form of taking. Now, the select board can maybe talk with the Conservation Commission. I'll write to them separately as well. I did write in December asking them to do something when the berm first appeared, and they took no action on my letter. But I feel like I've, at this point, followed adequate administrative pathways, and I see no action for anything that would cause the third-party inspection by an engineer or compliance with the existing permit. It seems like the enforcement order gets ignored, or the applicant just does something different, and then after the fact either responds with a new permit application, as has happened 3 times, or says, well, I don't have to deal with the permit, I'll just ask for whatever I do in my own independent discretion to be approved of by the town. And the town will say, well, it's inconvenient for us to take greater action, so we're just going to put a stamp on it, and it'll be a problem between the 2 neighbors. But if it becomes a problem to Mr. Centrella, who's come to numerous meetings, he's sent me voluminous correspondences with the conservation agent, he feels like it has been not just a determination by the conservation agent, but something that goes beyond even what the enforcement orders had said the parties were going to do, into the territory of it being an abuse of discretion. So we're asking that the board, go back to the commission and say, bring it into compliance with the enforcement order. There is an enforcement order. It didn't bring 6, it was on about 3. That was dated 7/17. So I guess one of the chairman and one of the clerk, and then, but it just said that the action was greater than 15,000 square feet, and importantly, it will require a general stormwater permit. At no point has the applicant applied for a general stormwater permit. They did an application for an administrative one, which doesn't have the same public hearing requirements and has a lower threshold. But if the enforcement order says general permit, that bypasses, for example, an intervening party from being able to weigh in on it. It's something that the conservation agent responds to directly. And then when they did get the approval in October of this administrative permit, they didn't comply with that either. So that would be the 4th instance of non-compliance with the permit. There are 3 previous notices of violation where each time they were served with a notice of violation and then they would change what they were doing. To me, that's a pattern of non-compliance, and you guys have given them a lot of leeway, and that makes a lot of sense with ordinary citizens. But for them, it's not their first rodeo. I mean, Anchor is an excavation company. They're well aware of issues like flooding and fugitive dust. We have reason to believe that they've put pipes under the ground in the wrong place, and that the driveway, as has been established in prior Conservation Commission meetings, is not compliant with other rules. So it seems like they're steamrolling a number of different bylaws. The only reason that we didn't, turn around in December and file an action for certiorari was right by Christmas, and I didn't feel like researching the bylaws. So I said, let's give it another month and see if we can prevail upon the parties to do something. So what I'd like would be for the select board to at least consider either instructing town council, that's I think Gay and Gay, to move forward with putting a lien on the Verastos property until they comply with the plans that they submitted in June, which include a swale as opposed to a berm, or instruct the Conservation Commission to take action to do the same thing, that is, to make them comply with it by what means they believe are efficient and necessary. But I don't know if waiting for the spring thaw would be protective of my client's interests, because once things thaw, not only will the flooding resume, but we run the risk of something that is in violation of prior instructions from the town being approved of, sort of to get it off of the commissioner's desk without it solving any of the problems on the ground as they exist.
Are you taking the position that water is trespassing onto Mr. Centrella's property right now?
Yes. Now, it's probably not flowing because I believe it's 24 degrees outside.
But you mentioned it multiple times. Is there evidence that since they've put that in, that it has flowed onto your property?
There's 2 pieces of wood that join together, excuse me, where a metal post is, and that's one area where it does come in now. There's not a lot of areas that it comes right now.
And you have evidence of that?
It was entered into the record on 10/17 at the Conservation Commission meeting.
I have pictures. I do have pictures.
The swale berm, whatever, was installed after 10/17.
So the dimensions of the swale haven't been entered into the administrative record yet.
I'm not arguing about that, and quite frankly, I'm going to advise the board in a moment. But my question is, you mentioned multiple times that water is trespassed onto your client's property.
Sure.
Since it has been built, and I would like to know if that's the case, because it only rained one time since it has been built, and I have verifiable proof, since I was standing there,
I was out there right
that water
after
did
you
not
left.
trespass. So if that happened in a different time, I think we need to know that so we can bring it to the Conservation Commission.
Okay, yeah, because I saw you out there with someone, and my son actually heard the conversation too, saying, "Oh, this is fine. There's no leaking or anything." But there's just one spot at that moment that it was between. There's 2 boards that come together,
Okay.
and there's a metal pole. It wasn't a ton of water coming in.
That's okay. It doesn't have to be a ton of water.
Yeah.
It just can't trespass onto your property.
Yeah.
So, obviously, you guys, as a board, you can direct me to do whatever you would like to do. First of all, a lot of what the attorney said sounds more like this is an appeal hearing. That is not this. There is no appeal hearing. The Conservation Commission is once appointed, is a separate independent regulatory board, And the Board of Selectmen has taken no position as to whether or not it complies or not, because we don't have the expertise to determine if it complies or not. The attorney's entirely correct, is that he can, through an order, force compliance, and I understand why they would not want to pursue that. But I can also tell you that unless there's something missing in statute that I'm unaware of, that the Board of Selectmen have no authority to be able to enforce compliance as well. Once you appoint, they are a separate regulatory board established by statute. Obviously, we would like to not have to go there. So I think the right thing to do is that if it's okay with the board, is for me to advise the Conservation Commission specifically about the information that was presented, which I'm sure they're already aware of, but make sure that they watch this meeting, review the documents, and then be able to follow up with Mr. Centrella as to whether or not they believe that they have complied with the permit, whether it's administrative or not, as to whether or not they complied with the permit or not, and make a position. At that point, then the client, for the attorney, Mr. Centrella, can make a decision as to what he would like to do at that point to preserve his rights. The only thing that, or the only element that the Board of Selectmen would be involved in is if the Conservation Commission at that point were choosing to levy fines or fees, they would then petition the board and we would reach out to Attorney Gay. I am not aware that there is a legislative required approval process, but I have never seen it in over 15 years of doing this, that the Board of Selectmen could go to Town Council and begin to levy fines against a developer on the request of an individual. It is usually based on the request of the regulatory board. So with that said, I think that the next best step is to engage conservation, have them review everything and make a determination of which then will either please Mr. Centrella or not, and then determine what next steps would be. I don't know if that's fair, but I don't know if you agree with that or disagree with that, but that's my advice to the board.
David, can I ask a question? Regulatory, would that be the conservation?
Yes.
Because on a couple of their videos, they had said they were going to, what is it called when they come up to you, bring things to you? I can't think of the word what it is. In other words, take the information that they had as far as fines and things like that, and because they kept saying they're definitely going to have to pay, John. There's no question about it. We want you to know, and we're going to present it before the selectmen. I just can't think of what the word.
No worries.
What the
So,
word is.
if the Conservation Commission, to my knowledge, has never taken a vote to say that they are looking to actually levy fees or fines, lien the property, and request the Board of Selectmen through Town Council to do so. If they have taken that vote, that is absent of my knowledge. I am not aware that that formal vote has been taken. I will say, and I know Council is probably aware of this, is that there is ample case law that fines and liens cannot be placed to be punitive in nature. So if they are able to come to a resolution where there is no trespass of water, and the hope and the anticipation is, let's still lien them to try to make them pay something, that's never going to fly in court. There's ample case law on that. If, however, there are real damages, then that is why we would request Town Council to be able to place a lien and or levy fees and fines against that developer. I am unaware of any financial damages, except I know you would say probably attorney's fees and all that stuff. I'm not sure where that would play out.
Yeah.
But at this point, absent a formal petition or request from conservation, it is my understanding and knowledge that the Board of Selectmen would not be able to go to Town Council and begin that process, because it must start with the regulatory board stating that for these purposes, we are seeking this relief.
Okay.
Even though they said it during those meetings, look, John, it's time for us to get it together. It's going to the selectmen. I notated everything last time when I gave you each.
Yeah, I mean, there needs to be a motion, there needs to be a second, there needs to be a vote. And then,
basically, there's a lot of incompetence there, in my opinion.
Yeah, so
That's just mine.
as we signaled, and I don't know if you would like it, but I do have a copy of the prior letter as well. I think my brother is generally correct that
I am not your brother, but thank you. I probably, yes, I am not, but thank you very much.
That's right. In that case, you can be my brother.
That's right, thank you. Can I make up my BBO number?
It's funny. The first time I used to practice in San Diego, and my wife got a job at UMass. And the first time I came out to Massachusetts, I wasn't aware of the quirk that counsel here call each other brother.
Yes.
So I was in one of your early cases you pick up as a housing court case, and the other attorney says, "Well, my brother here says, did he just? Am I okay to do that?" It's a habit of reference. So, but yeah, as long as there are actions taken that give us a sense that there won't be future failure of the structure, either an independent engineering expectation, that'd be fine.
Yep.
One of the problems that had happened was, I think Youngquist, who was the guy who'd done the inspection, had come out early on in the process, but then later on hadn't come back. And some of the later iterations of the project, when I think a driveway was introduced later, and now with the berm, there hasn't been an engineer on the ground. So these differ from plans. There haven't been specific findings of fact by the Conservation Commission. It seems to be that they've in the past issued a few violations and are now kind of just waiting to see what is produced to them by the respondent, by the applicant. But if we are always reacting in that way, then as the butter, we don't notice until after a flooding event occurs or when the ground becomes soggy. And as a last point, and I know I've gone on for a while, there was a tree and a number of bushes that were cut by the Barassos on Mr. Centrale's property. Those damages themselves are fairly small. This isn't really about the money damages so much. What he's concerned with is that if the pipes that are under the ground near the edge of the property, the location of the driveway, which may have problems with its level of permeability, and the existence of the berm combined to direct water towards certain places in his land, 2 or 3 years from now, we'll start seeing the water react to the land react to the water. The soils might become hydric, they might start to erode, and if he brings that, then the Conservation Commission will say, well, these aren't large enough to be a jurisdictional wetland, they weren't pre-existing, and we've already done permits for the stormwater, which we believe is adequately controlled, so it's not a town problem. And then it becomes a problem between the two parties, and once they've put something in the ground, it's likely going to stay there. And it's difficult to quantify the money damages in those kinds of instances. So if he loses 1,500 square feet of the edge of his yard, which used to be planted with certain plants, and can't put it to that use anymore, it is difficult to enforce that. Not impossible, but then if you have relatively nominal damages, you've had a right that's taken, and it completely misses the whole process of a butter's petition, and that's what we're concerned with.
No, I fully understand, and unfortunately under that, it may potentially become a civil matter where you could argue that it's a taking of some kind. But I fully understand that we don't want to get there. So if the board is acceptable to this, when we have a conversation with Conservation, I think that they have to come to a determination. The only thing is, I know that time is important, but obviously we have snow on the ground, we're in the middle of the winter, the ground is frozen, there's not going to be a determination in the short term. But I do think that they have to render a determination so we can determine as to what next steps would be.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate you going out there too.
Yeah, we look at
I was
nobody.
surprised to see you out there. You're the only person that's ever been out.
Well, there's been others because he's hard to see.
Well, I know.
I blend in.
No,
Sure.
no. He sees everything.
Oh,
I
you're
drink
right.
like twice a day.
Well, look, I've met with each one of the board
Ken, I
members.
know.
Everybody's concerned about this. We do not ever want to see water being transferred from one property to another, not just because of the stormwater permit, not just because of whatever the laws or regulations are, it's because it's not the right thing. So the board's been sensitive to it. We've talked a lot, especially Jeff and I, and let's see where we go next up with conservation.
Yeah, and I know Jeff has seen it going by. He's been to my house, which I appreciate.
Okay. So we'll be in touch. We're in touch anyhow, and we will we'll work through this.
Okay. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Stay warm. Drive safe.
Thank you.
Stay warm might not happen.
Feet on me.
Okay, moving on to warrants, Board of Selectmen business. First is a vote to approve the garage repair license for Mega Motorworks located at 745 North Main Street.
Yep, it's a used car law with a valid Class 2 license. They're looking to be able to work on cars, no problems or issues. Is all paperwork in? Okay, so it doesn't have to be subject to documents or inspections.
Okay, so make a motion.
Make a motion to approve the garage repair license for Mega Motorworks located at 745 North Main Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Super. Vote to approve the one-day entertainment license for the Lions Club Springfest on May 17th at Friendship Park. I know this has been done in the past. It's a great event. A lot of fun, a lot of kids, just a good time. So I have no objections. Any from the board?
No.
All right, then I'll make the motion to approve the one-day entertainment license for the Lions Club Springfest on May 17th, 2026 at Friendship Park.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Next, review and vote on recommendation, approve a motion, bless you, and assign a reader for article for the special town meeting. So, this is the article specific to the new school. I think it makes sense that Mr. Keith, who's been the chairman of the school building committee, would be the reader. And then, do we need to read the article, or are we good with the article, or just as presented?
Yep, well, the article has already been accepted and
Yep.
actually been posted. So at this point, you're approving the motion, which is basically the same language as the article, but with the insertion of the dollar amount and how it would be proposed to be paid. So the dollar amount inserted is $169,640,380, and the article as proposed would be a borrowing article, which will require 2/3. Other than that, the rest of the language mirrors the article which has been approved. So we would ask for your approval of the motion.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the motion as presented with the financial aspect included.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we need to make a motion for Gary as well, as a reader?
Sure.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we assign the reader of this article to Gary Keith, who is the school building committee chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then finally, we make a recommendation at this point. I will, I know I have some words to say. I believe, anybody want to start? You go first, you go first.
I mean, I can go first.
Up to you, Mike.
I'll go first.
Okay.
Great. I want to acknowledge that I wrote something, because that way I don't forget. So I'm just going to read. I want to acknowledge that what everyone already understands and knows. This is a significant financial decision for the town of West Bridgewater. I recognize the concerns around cost, and I do not take that lightly. But I also believe it's important to recognize how long this issue has been deferred. The Howard School was built in the late 1950s, and while it was renovated in the 1990s, it was also never designed for the demands of modern education. The Roselle McDonald School was built in 1968. Education has changed dramatically since these buildings were constructed. How we teach, how our students learn, and what is recognized properly to support them. This past week I visited Howard School. While classrooms may appear large when they're empty, when students and educators are in them, the usable space is significantly reduced. I witnessed students receiving one-on-one education and instruction in hallways with no place to sit. I observed classrooms divided into multiple sections with different periods of instructions happening simultaneously in each quadrant. That is simply not acceptable. That is simply not an acceptable learning environment for our children. The space is not there, and it's needed. As a town, we have an important conversation about safety and security and modern facilities. In 2008, when this pertains to 2008, when the police department and the fire department was built, former Chief Vic Flaherty and current Chief Tim Nixon spoke publicly about the importance of modern infrastructure and technology when discussing our police station, noting that we would not outgrow it. If we can recognize the importance of investing in safety and modern facilities for public safety, then we must also recognize that our children, our most important responsibilities, deserve the same level of consideration. I want to be clear, this project is not perfect. It may not be exactly what everyone wants. However, It is the result of extensive work and thoughtful decisions made by the board and committee members involved, the board meaning the school building committee. There are still items to work through with conservation and zoning, but that is not unusual. We hire professionals to adapt plans, resolve challenges, and make projects work as we have done so before. I'm in favor of this proposal. Waiting will only make the situation worse. Delaying actions will increase costs and limit our options, and ultimately leave us spending more while getting less. I kind of got through that, but I think you guys get the gist of it. At the end of the day, I think that the security of the school, like when I visited Howard specifically, and I constantly, my kids are in Roselle, so when I pick up my kids in Roselle, I do have some concerns about the safety and the security of the schools and the sizes and just the old infrastructure that's there.
Respectfully, if that school's unsafe, it should be fixed now.
Agreed?
If any of them are unsafe, they should be fixed now. I don't mean to.
You're good.
I'm not going to say much that I didn't say when the school was here. First, I've been on a committee that's met for 3 or 4 years to put a plan together that turns out to be different than maybe what was expected. So thank the school building committee for their efforts and their energy and their focus on this. And then there's a but, and we know there's a but. I want to start, before I get to the but, I 100% believe that we need to replace the Roselle School. No argument, no discussion. I also believe we need to replace the Spring Street School. Those are the first 2 things that were requested from the school building committee. I do have an issue with replacing the Howard. I think the Howard's a functioning school. Could it use some updates? Yes. But I don't think we need to bulldoze it. Or I don't think we need to become a landlord for it. This plan, as I mentioned the last 2 meetings ago, fails on a couple of grounds for me, and it's not emotional, it's strictly financial. 1, increasing the attendance for 400 unknown students seems excessive, if not fat. 2, it leaves the Spring Street School intact. That is a school, as I said it again, at the beginning of this process, needed to be replaced, and then miraculously didn't need to be replaced. So as we talk about this and we talk about cost, somewhere in the future, there's a cost, 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, to replace that school. In the meantime, this plan calls to take that school and use half of it. Last I checked, we can't heat half of it. I don't know how that works. I don't know what goes on, but we're going to take a school, we're going to use half of it. It makes no financial sense whatsoever. Howard, most recently renovated school, we're going to leave it empty. It's a resource that nobody asked for initially to be replaced. It was not a concern. I respect Mike's opinion on security, safety. There's stuff we need to do. We should do it. But it's not a reason for me to knock it down. With that, there was another plan that never made it far enough. But as the initial price for this school was $196 million, the initial price for this plan at that time, before any value engineering was done, anything to take it down a level, was at $150. If you take the 14% that the proposed school was value engineered down, takes the 150 down to 128, 125, something in that range. That school would be pre-K through 4. It would eliminate the need for Spring Street. It would eliminate the need for investing in replacing Spring Street. It would also put Howard to use, but take a grade out of Howard so that we can relieve some of the stress that is there. That plan would save the town $20 to $30 million in its face value. And then when you look into the future and realize that Spring Street, and I walked through Spring Street, and I do believe it would need to be replaced or renovated at some time in the future, takes another 20 to 30 million, just my guess, my estimate, uneducated. But I can't see that building costing less to that to be replaced. So that's a $50 to $60 million swing to the town that I don't think the town can afford on a good day, and we are not having a good day right now. The economy's not well. People are very much financially strapped, and I wish that more of that thought maybe went into the work that the committee was done. I've been involved with the youth in this town for a long time. I have a lot of positions that involve the youth. I will work my backside off to get a pre-K through 4 school built if this should fail. But I did not sit here to push people out of town, and I did not sit here to spend more money than what is necessary. There's always that expression, nice to have, need to have. And I think this committee at this time went for their nice to have, and the need to have is more the pre-K through 4. I will speak more to that, I'm sure, at town meeting, but as a brief summary, I don't know how brief that was. But with the attendance, with the leaving of Spring Street, with becoming a landlord for Howard, needing to replace Spring Street at some point, 400 additional students, I think 200 is probably a realistic number. It all just seems to be a bit excessive, and again, in that nice to have, not the need to have category. I understand it could cause a delay. I understand costs could go up, but realistically, I can't see those costs going up 40, 50, 60 million, which is probably the net cost of this when you consider replacing Spring Street somewhere down the road. So for that, and for that reason, my recommendation is no to this school, come back, we work, we get a pre-K through 4 proposal in. My recommendation would be yes. That's it.
All right. Well, so Mike, I appreciate your words and I respect them. I do take the opposite side. Jeff, I really appreciate everything you said because you took every single thought out of my head and said it all for me. As a member of the school building committee, I've not been for this project, this specific project, all along. I don't know that I've made any secret of that. I've voted against this project as well because I do think it is too big, too much, and Jeff, like you said, it's just nice to have, or would have been, or would be nice to have if it passes. I think it's too big, it's too much, and I don't feel that it's in the best interest of all of the residents in town financially. I think that it's going to put unnecessary hardship on a lot of our elderly and fixed income residents just so that we can have something nice. So I'm conflicted because I do know that there is a need. I also did the tours of the schools, and Jeff, like you, I agree that Roselle has to be replaced, Spring Street has to be replaced. Howard, I think, is in fine condition. I did notice that there does seem to be a lot of stuff in all of the schools. The schools are quite crowded with stuff. So I think that, if for whatever reason this plan doesn't go through, we might want to explore some creative organization for the school and getting rid of some broke down or not being used equipment. I know that there was an ice machine in one building that hadn't been used and nobody could tell me how long, and it, just taking up space. So I think that there are some other avenues to explore getting back some space in some of these schools until we come, up with a better solution. And I do believe that the pre-K through 4 would be the solution. I believe that that's the answer. So like you, Jeff, I would be in favor of that if for whatever reason this project doesn't go through. But at this time, I would be voting no to recommend this.
Okay. So we have our recommendations. We have a 2-to-1.
Yes.
And a negative. Thank you all for your thoughtful comments. As a reminder, anybody that is watching, Saturday the 31st at 10 o'clock at the high school, this vote takes place. Next is I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of December 17th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, accept the meeting minutes of January 7th, 2026 for review.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Site plan review, planning board, 131 West Street, church.
Yeah, so 131 West Street is basically a residential house that for decades had also enjoyed some protection of being able to have a contractor's yard out of it. There has been some ongoing dispute with that through the ZBA, and quite frankly, the owner at that point, it looks like, has ceased his business, and as a result is looking to sell it. His entity is looking to purchase it. This is in the general residential and farming district. However, in compliance with state law, an established or recognized religious institution has the right to be able to go in any and all zones. So at this point, it's just a site plan review before the planning board. There is it's an allowed by right use.
We making a recommendation, or we just?
It should, yeah, it would be a recommendation to the planning board. One of the building commissioner's concerns is that because it had been operating as a business, is that there are currently administrative offices that are in there. And although a church is allowed by right, by law, mixed use is not, and mixed use is not allowed in our local zoning. So his recommendation is to the planning board, is to make sure the planning board makes it clear that it can be a church and only a church, and the administrative offices cannot be used in any form for business or such as mixed use. So if you want to, if you want to reinforce that with the recommendation, that's great. If there's any other recommendation, again, you are in a residential area, so obviously we're going to be concerned about parking. I'm not exactly sure how much is there. Remember, it's underneath use was a residential home. It does have 2 long driveways, so it can accommodate more parking than normal, but I don't know how big this church is going to be. And obviously lighting would be a concern as well.
For me, I defer to the planning board with a concern for parking and the neighbors,
Parking and potential traffic. I mean, that's a bit of a isn't
Yeah,
it?
it sounded like they meet on Sunday and Wednesday mornings, the church. Like, it's not a full-time thing, but, it was 30 to 50 people in the letter. That's a lot of cars right there, so.
Well, and again,
Is there any way to pull it up so we can see it?
are you able to pull it together? Obviously, the other concern is, I don't know what its future expectation is, but like most churches, you will have specialty events. So say, for example, if there's a wake, or if there is a funeral, if it were to be used, I'm not saying it would be, but, that's pretty consistent with what a church usually is used for, there could be additional parking pressure at that point.
Man, I miss summer.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's that property. Drive by that.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's exactly the property.
That's correct. So you can see there's a driveway on the right and there's a driveway on the left.
Yeah, my concern would be the parking and then overflow would be on the street, and that road is busy.
Yeah.
We can't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be in favor, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's planning board, but I wouldn't be in favor of any parking on that street.
Yeah.
Period.
At all.
Correct. So we'll include,
Especially not there.
Parking, staging, anything.
Coming around that bend right there, too? No, thanks.
so no overflow parking on street.
On West Street.
Yeah.
Is there any wetlands around that area
I don't know,
that
but
would prevent them from parking, we'll say?
I mean, it looks like that.
Because I thought to them, looking at the property from west, on the left side, I thought there was some potential wetlands over there.
yeah, I don't know what the lot line is of the property, but they would have to obviously look at that. If there is wetlands, then conservation has to weigh in before the planning board issues a site plan.
Yeah, so obviously parking would be a big concern.
Yeah.
And
And then reinforcing the no mixed use.
then help me understand services and amplified music and things like that. Like, is that just something that they don't have to come to us, right? That's not an entertainment license or anything along those lines?
Churches are exempt from an entertainment license. Obviously, if there was noise complaints, the police would become involved, but churches are exempt from the requirement of an amusement or entertainment license.
Now,
Religious institutions, I should say.
Yes.
I've been told they've been exempt from taxes as well. I don't know how true that is or not.
Yep, no, that is correct. Religious institutions are exempt from property taxes. That's state law.
And we're looking to build a $170 million school.
Well, that's the law. Like, we can't.
I get
you
it,
know,
I get it, but
They have rights. Don't have to love them, but they have rights. So I don't want to speak for the board, but I think parking's a concern, no parking on the street. And not to be mean, but figure it out. But meaning,
Yeah.
the owners
Creative.
of the building need to figure out how to get the necessary parking on property.
And I also think it's important to note to recognize that, to be cognizant of the neighbors,
Yeah.
you know.
That's why I was asking the question specifically about amplified music or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, they may be exempt from music, but also it's be cognizant of your neighbors.
Mhm.
You said it said 30 to 50 parishioners?
It was in the letter from the
Yeah.
church.
Okay, that's what I was just trying to find. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
Roughly
that's a lot of
50 to
cars.
70, I'm sorry.
It's 50 to 70.
A lot of cars.
And what's interesting, they said they're going to relocate from Hyde Park, so I'm not sure as to whether, they're going to have some attrition
Mhm.
in that, so.
Yeah, and like I said, Wednesday morning's 20 people, that's not, but just because the building can hold X amount of people doesn't mean the property can.
Yep.
So, and I was
Mhm.
planning to drill into that.
I will add for the building commissioner, just to make sure that there's, as to what the occupancy limits are.
Communications from boards, commissions, and town officials. Mr. Hurley will no longer be a candidate for re-election to the planning board.
That is correct.
All right. Mr. Hurley's done this for a long, long time.
39 years.
So while a letter would be insufficient until somebody comes up with something
What we
better,
got.
if we could send a letter to Mr. Hurley saying thank you.
Maybe he gets a watch.
Yeah. Correspondence from the public to determine a course of action. We have none. Public comment period, we have one. And we are good. And he is, no.
We have to.
Well, now we have two.
Then I'll get to-
Mr. Bernstein, you arrived just in time for public comment period. Whatever, well,
Anything you want.
whatever you want, but you get 3 minutes, not a second more. We just commented, I know you just came up from the planning board meeting, we just commented that Mr. Hurley's announced that he is not a candidate for re-election. And then we're open to public comment period, so obviously looking for candidates there.
Yeah, somebody intelligent, smart, knows how to do the job. He was a great guy. It's going to be hard to fill. And Anthony, I think, resigned as well.
Correct, Mystic, we received that in yesterday, it was too late to place on the agenda, but that will be on your agenda at your next meeting.
Okay. So, town administrator's report?
Yep, thank you. So the first one is Lions Club Summer Concert Series. We know we do this annually, and they do an excellent job, so you can see all the dates that are in front of you, and that's been signed off and approved. Also, an FYI, deficit spending for snow and ice, we've approved that. It used to have to be approved by the Board of Selectmen, law changes that way. I can approve it as town administrator. We budget $91,000 of a year. As of 2 weeks ago, we had used $72,000, so it'll only be a matter of time before we go over. And obviously, with the impending storm over the weekend, we know that will obviously definitely go over. On that note, I also want to just say thank you to DPW. We have had some smallish storms over the past couple of weeks, but they've all come at the absolute worst time for an employee. One was over the Christmas break, one was over the New Year's break, and then this past Sunday, I know not everybody is a football fan, but it happened right in the middle of the football game, and instead of at home enjoying and relaxing with their families, they're out making sure that all of us are safe as we travel the road. So,
With the potential for a repeat.
correct. The next one is coming in on Sunday again, so you're
And those of our
entirely right.
superstitious fans would want
Yeah.
nothing but the repeat with the
Yeah.
same result. So,
Exactly.
sorry,
So,
DPW.
So again, just informing you that, as you know, at the end of the fiscal year, we will do a transfer to make up for that difference, but giving you an FYI on that. And again, thank you to all of the work that they do. The next one is really an FYI as well. I saved this on purpose because, as we know, we have our Municipal Managers Association conference in Boston this weekend. I know at least 2, if not all 3 of you are going. And you are going to hear a lot about this. The MMA is pushing an agenda in reference, and I'm not saying agenda in a negative way, but they are pushing an agenda that there needs to be a better and more, a tighter financial relationship between the state and municipalities. And so they have this talking points that I know that they will be discussing. So if you're there, you are going to hear it. Instead of bringing it up a couple of months ago when it first came out, I specifically saved it for tonight, so it'll be fresh in your mind. It is unequivocal that their first and most prevalent point is that in 2008, the last budget before the financial crisis, is that the state provided $1.3 billion collectively to 351 municipalities as part of local aid. In 2026, our current year, that aggregate number is $1.27 billion. So that's actually $300,000 less over that 15, 18-year period of time, and that is not adjusted for inflation. That is actually in real dollars. What they have done is that they have transferred much of that money over to education aid. And so although that's a positive to the schools, it is not obvious. We have more than one department that we have to manage. So in the history behind this, which is important because the state has made some changes that were unfair, is that in 1992, when it was through a referendum vote allowed to be able to start the lottery system, it was marketed at that point that 100% of those proceeds would go back into municipal aid. And through those years, through the appropriation process, it has been less and less of that money has flowed from the legislature to the states, to the municipalities, and has been used instead in other areas. So that is point number one. Other points is that they are looking to provide additional flexibility to municipalities to be able to, instead of do 2.5, do 3.5 under Proposition 3.5, basically do away with Proposition 2.5, increase the cap, or allow for more flexibility in overrides that could be for multiple years, allow for municipalities to be able to potentially do overrides in a different format, and then also allow for additional ways to increase taxes, such as through local excise tax on your vehicles or increase the meals tax. I answer to the board, and I will carry the message of whatever the board would prefer, but I will tell you that in my dealings with the leadership at MMA, I have stressed that I don't think that that's the real approach. There is no doubt that municipalities are suffering from real cost concerns. Although we can only raise taxes at a total levy limit of 2.5%, the private industry does not adhere to that. So our health care costs continue to rise well in excess of 2.5%. Property and insurance continues to rise at higher than 2.5%. Workers' comp insurance continues to rise above and beyond that. And obviously when you procure items, they continue to rise above and beyond 2.5%. So the cost pressures are real, but I don't, in my opinion, continuously saying to the local taxpayer, we're just going to tax you more, I think is unfair, because sooner or later, everybody only has so much discretionary income. What we really need to do is we need to also start focusing on costs. And I'm not saying that that's an easy answer, but that is something that I think we also have to address as well. But anyway, I'm informing the board because you will see or hear many of these options over the weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm not in favor of snapping 2.5. Taxpayer first, selectman second, maybe.
Also providing to you an FYI, the town septic system, the municipal septic system is nearing its end of life. We all know that. It's 25 to 30 years old, and it sits where the Howard fields are sitting. In some of our schools, council on aging, and public safety all tie into that system. Just an FYI, there was a considerable issue at the public safety building this past week. All told, we don't have all the expenses in yet, but it's probably going to near somewhere around $20,000. But obviously it had to get fixed. So we've had to install a couple of new pumps and also auger the system because somehow something got clogged in it. We pump the tanks every year at the fire department. We pump the tanks every other year at the police department. There's a difference because remember, fire lives there. They stay there 24 hours. So the flow is a little bit different. But my point is, this is not lack of maintenance. The pumps are over 20 years old that are being replaced. And for whatever reason, something got into the system. So that has been fully augured. In addition to that, the police department side lost heat. So what we have done is we've taken money out of the budget at this point so we can cover it, because obviously you need septic and you need heat. But some of this money we'll be looking to replenish through the Municipal Building Needs Committee. We do that through an article process as needed. We have not used that money in a handful of years. There's on or around $70,000 in the account, so there's plenty enough money to handle it, and this is precisely for the reasons that's there. But again, I'm just giving you as an FYI. In addition to that, as an FYI, the digital sign has begun the installation process. And if you saw it, it's out front. The electrician will be out tomorrow, and hopefully by the end of the week, it will be operational. Last is that, as an update, is that we met with the water commissioners in October, and there was a conversation between the board and the water commissioners that, seeing that there is a pending retirement of the existing water superintendent at the end of 2026, is this an opportunity to make the water department, in essence, a department merged with our highway, forestry, our current DPW, and create one department and look to try to drive some synergies at that. And so you asked me, or tasked me, to look into the process. Town council has provided a bullet point process moving forward, but the short answer is that it will require a special act of the legislature in order to do, because again, we don't have a charter. So we don't have anything spelled out as to how we would do this. So as a result, we would bring an article, or the Board of Selectmen and the Water Commissioners would support an article going to town meeting, presumably in May. If town meeting approves it, then we would then provide that special act language to our state delegation. So that's Senator Driscoll and Representative Plouffe. The rules in Beacon Hill is that you can only provide special act legislation to be adopted through the process starting in January of every odd year. So that would be January of 2027. So if approved in town meeting, there would be no action being taken by the legislature until January of 2027. They would then go through their full budget reconciliation process, and when we need the governor's signature. And so the assumption is that if everything went smoothly, is that it would become effective sometime in late or probably fall of 2027. If you are in favor of moving forward with this, then I would ask town council to begin drafting the special legislative act language. And one of the items that we would need is just to insert language, and if it's okay with the board, I'd like to work with the chair on it, because the board will have to dictate how the appointment process would work. Mostly you would just appoint like you would do with any other board. But I want to make sure I capture that correctly. We would bring it back to the full board, you would vote on it, and then we would begin the process at town meeting in May.
Makes sense to me.
David, you mentioned a charter. Does it make sense to start looking?
Well,
Yeah.
I've said for years I think we should, so I'm going to say yes. Look, what we are organized, West Bridgewater is organized, cobbling together a whole handful of state laws. And so we follow that process. As towns grow, almost every single one of them gets a charter, because that way they can say what works for us. And I use this example all the time. As cities and towns get more sophisticated, they have to do this. Brockton was a town. As it grew, it had to create a charter, eventually morphed into a city, but it had to create a charter. And so during that charter process, you really have to take a real look at how you are organized. I'm just going to throw out examples. It's not good or bad. Should the water commissioners be elected or appointed? Should the town clerk be elected or appointed? Should we have 3-member boards or 5-member boards? What is the powers vested in these boards and administrators? And that does take a lengthy process. The normal process for that is that you would seek at town meeting funding to hire a specific charter consultant. They specialize in this. You will name a committee, a charter committee, made up, I think, all of residents, but you'll name a charter committee, and then the charter committee normally spends 12 to 18 months studying it. And it might seem overkill, but you really want to get this right. And so you will study it to say, should your Board of Health be elected or appointed? How do we go to town meeting? Do we have town meeting? Do we change processes going to town meeting? There was concerns in the past about what budgets are presented at town meeting. You could put anything and everything in the charter. You also place in the charter how you could change it at a later date. But you would follow the same process. That's why you want to do it right the first time. In a charter, then, once approved at town meeting after this 12 or 18 months of study time, then goes back to the legislature, and the legislature would follow the same process, and then they would approve it. So it's a lengthy process. It will cost some money. The average consultant cost on this is around $20,000, $25,000, because they are spending literally 12 to 18 months advising the town. They will walk into the town and they will bring questions up that people have not thought of. And so that's why you need this. You need that expertise. In my personal opinion, I think it's a fantastic idea. Just recognize there is a cost and there is a time frame.
So you sit on your hands.
You just gotta look into it more.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of work.
You gotta look into it more. I mean, it's just, I like keeping
I think
control.
It's a terrible idea. I'm involved with Bridgewater a great deal, and one of the big problems they have is the charter, and everyone in that town hates the fact that they did the charter. I think it's a terrible idea. It's great that we have town meeting in this town. We don't want a charter.
Well, the charter wouldn't necessarily, it would be what we want it to be. Like, it wouldn't be.
Right, but a lot of things get blocked because the way the language is in the charter, and it's like a hurdle for almost anything they try to get done.
See, because I was thinking opposite. I was thinking it would be simplifying certain things, but it sounds like
No, it makes it much harder.
Okay. So I gotta look into it more.
So again, I think what Jeff is saying, I just want to make sure that we're clear. A charter indicates how you want your government to operate. You can make it really easy. You can make it really difficult. It's how you choose to set it up. Easton has a charter. Easton has town meeting. Bridgewater has a charter. They have town council. Bridgewater has a charter. They decide to keep an elected clerk. Easton has a charter. They decide to have an appointed town clerk. I came from Plainville. As I was leaving, we went to a charter. Because like West Bridgewater, Plainville never had one. So at that time, the water commissioners were elected, and they decided they wanted to have the water commissioners appointed. They made those types of changes in it. So, again, the charter will define how you want to move going forward and what the rules are. And you can make them as tight and as loose as you want them to be. The only caveat is that if you ever want to change it, then Mark is entirely correct. You have to go through the entire process with the legislature. So I would always advise that you make it kind of as liberal or loose as you possibly can, as opposed to extremely rigid. But again, you have to go through the process to make that determination. And quite frankly, if you were to ever pursue this, since Mark is on the planning board and has concerns from Bridgewater, I would love to see him on the committee, because then he could actually bring real direct knowledge to say, here's the problem with Bridgewater, and we can fix it. And we'll have that opportunity.
Something to explore, think about maybe a little, get some feedback. I appreciate the feedback.
And then on the water, we want to say, is the board okay if we pursue looking at language? Is that what the board would like to do?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Then next item is, your next meeting for the Selectmen is February 4th. You will start your budget hearings that night. So budgets are coming in. We'll start the review process over the next week or two. But you will start to meet with department heads and start your budget hearing at that point, your budget hearings at that point. Also, in addition, is a please recall, as Jeff said earlier, special town meeting is on January 31st at 10 a.m. However, you will be posted at 9:30, so that way if there is any business the Board of Selectmen has to do, you will have the legal authority to do so.
Cool. I I'm not sure, I want to apologize if I snapped at you. We were talking about the school, and I said if it's not safe, we need to make it safe. If I did, that came across wrong.
I'm not
sorry.
very
just-
emotional.
I am you're such a jerk. I am, this thing just, here I say do it for the kids, here I say it doesn't make sense, and it churns up a little bit. But one of my points of frustration when we did the tour the other night was there were 2 water fountains that didn't work in the Roselle, and they said they hadn't worked since COVID.
COVID, yeah.
Right, so that's 3-4 years ago, basic math. Even if we decide to build the school 2 Saturdays from now, it's, okay. Okay, my point is, they haven't worked for a long time, and they're not going to work for just as long to get the school built. So I don't understand why right outside the 2 the 2 hallways where the 2 elementary, all the classrooms are, the schools decided to see fit to not fix 2 water fountains. Because I can't think of a circumstance in this town where if that money went CapEx, however it went, and we said we needed a ridiculous amount, $50,000, it can't be. But even if it was so that kids could get water outside their classes, anybody in this town would say no. We don't do that stuff. So when I hear that, or it's not safe, or it's not this, fix it.
Yeah, so
Ice machine, fix it.
I heard it a little
That's
bit.
my-
I heard it a little bit different, and I did a deeper dive into it because there was a concern because my kids go to that school, and the reason that the water fountain isn't working is because since COVID, and when they had to come back, they had to install a filtration system, and the water machines and where they are located, they weren't able to apply the filtration system. But I'm with you. I think they should put a bubbler or they should put something in the school, even if it's a 5-gallon drum with a little water thing on it, so they can continue to fill it.
It's just, the school's gotten every budget they've asked for since,
Simple maintenance.
so.
There's a
it's
hole
just
in a floor, and it's
So when I heard it's
been a
not
hole.
safe, I'm like, fix it. And if it came across as something towards you, I
I didn't want to do
apologize.
I didn't want to do the deep dive into that.
I just, this has not been fun, so. On that happy note, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn if there's no other discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.